The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow over the rain-slicked pavement. Ellie Harper, 30, stood frozen outside, her breath fogging in the chilly Oregon air, staring at the woman inside who didn't yet know her daughter had returned. 15 years had passed since Ellie last saw her mother, Diane, and the weight of those years pressed against her chest like a stone. She pushed open the diner's door, the bell jingling like a memory from childhood. The smell of coffee and fried onions hit her, pulling her back to the summer she'd spent in this small coastal town, before everything changed. Diane sat in a corner booth, her silver-streaked hair catching the light, her hands wrapped around a mug as if it anchored her to the world. Ellie's heart pounded. She'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but now, standing 10 feet from her mother, the words dissolved. She was 15 again, the girl who'd been sent to live with her grandma in Montana after a fight she never fully understood. Why had Diane let her go? Why had she never called? And why, after all these years, had Ellie felt an unshakable pull to return? Ellie! Diane's voice, soft but sharp with disbelief, cut through the diner's hum. Her eyes, green like Ellie's, widened as she stood, the mug trembling in her hands. Is that you? Ellie nodded, her throat tight. Hi, Mom. The word felt foreign, like a language she'd forgotten. Diane's face crumpled, and she crossed the diner in 3 steps, pulling Ellie into a hug that smelled of lavender and regret. Ellie stiffened at first, then melted into it, the years collapsing in that single embrace. They sat, the booth creaking under their weight, and Ellie noticed the lines etched into Diane's face. Lines that hadn't been there when she was a child. I didn't know if you'd want to see me, Ellie said, her voice barely above a whisper. Want to see you? Diane's eyes brimmed with tears. Ellie, I've thought of you every day. Then why? Ellie's voice cracked. Why did you send me away? Diane's gaze dropped to the table, her fingers tracing the edge of a faded photograph she'd pulled from her pocket. It showed a younger Diane laughing, her arm around a woman with dark curls and a radiant smile. Ellie's breath caught. She knew that face, not from memory, but from a single photo Grandma had kept hidden in a drawer, one Ellie had found as a teenager. Who is she? Ellie asked, pointing to the woman in the picture. Diane's hand froze. Her name was Claire, she said, her voice barely audible. She was everything. Ellie leaned forward, her pulse quickening. Everything? Mom, what are you saying? Diane's eyes met hers, raw and unguarded. I loved her, Ellie. I loved her, and it cost me everything. The words hung between them, heavy with a truth Ellie had never suspected. Her mother, the woman she'd idolized as a child, had been in love with another woman, and somehow that love had torn their family apart. Ellie's mind raced. She'd come here expecting answers about her exile to Montana, but this was something else. What happened to her? She asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Diane's lips trembled. She's gone. And I couldn't protect you from what came after. The diner faded away, the clatter of dishes and hum of voices drowned out by the weight of Diane's confession. Ellie reached for her mother's hand, her fingers brushing the photograph. She didn't know what had happened to Claire, or why Diane had sent her away, but she knew one thing. She wasn't leaving until she uncovered the truth. They talked for hours, the diner emptying around them. Diane spoke haltingly of Claire, a painter who'd moved to their small town in the late 90s. She'd been vibrant, fearless, with a laugh that could light up a room. Diane had met her at an art gallery, and what started as friendship became something deeper. Something forbidden in a town that prized conformity over love. I didn't know how to tell you, Diane said, her voice thick with guilt. You were so young and I was terrified of what people would say. Your father, he didn't understand. When he found out, he left. Ellie's chest tightened. She remembered her father's absence, the way he'd vanished without a goodbye. So you sent me to Grandma's because of him? Diane shook her head. Not just him. The town, they turned on us. Claire and I, we tried to keep it quiet, but secrets don't stay buried here. There were threats, Ellie. Ugly ones. I sent you away to keep you safe. Ellie's hands clenched into fists. Safe? You think I was safe, growing up thinking my own mother didn't want me? Diane flinched as if slapped. I wanted you, Ellie. I wanted you more than anything. But I was broken, and I thought you'd be better off without me. The words cut deep, but they also sparked something in Ellie. A need to understand, to piece together the life her mother had hidden. She thought of her own life, the way she'd always felt different, the way she'd fallen for her college roommate, Sarah, only to push her away out of fear. Was this why? Had she inherited her mother's secrets, her shame? I need to know everything, Ellie said, her voice firm. About Claire, about you, about why you never came for me. Diane nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'll tell you. But it's not an easy story. As the diner's lights dimmed, Ellie leaned closer, ready to listen. She didn't know it yet, but the truth would unravel everything she thought she knew about her mother, herself, and the love they'd both been afraid to claim. The next morning, Ellie woke in her mother's guest room, the scent of salt air drifting through the open window. She'd barely slept, her mind tangled with Diane's words from the diner. Claire. The name echoed like a ghost, a woman who'd shaped her mother's life, and by extension her own. Downstairs, Diane was already at the kitchen table, a pot of coffee brewing. The photograph of Claire lay between them, its edges worn from years of being held. Ellie picked it up, studying the woman's face. Claire's eyes sparkled with defiance, her smile a challenge to the world. Ellie felt a pang. She recognized that look. It was the same one she saw in the mirror when she thought of Sarah. Tell me about her, Ellie said, sliding into a chair. Everything. Diane took a deep breath, her hands wrapping around her mug. Claire came to town in '98. She was 28, an artist from Seattle, running from a life she never talked about. She set up a studio in that old warehouse by the pier, painting these wild, colorful canvases that nobody here understood. I was working at the library, married to your father, raising you. I wasn't looking for anything, but then I met her. Ellie leaned forward, her heart racing. What was it like? Falling in love with her? Diane's eyes softened, a smile tugging at her lips. Like waking up. She saw me, the real me, not the wife or mother I was supposed to be. We'd talk for hours about books, art, the world. She made me laugh, Ellie. God, I hadn't laughed like that in years. Ellie's chest ached. She thought of Sarah, the way her laugh had filled their dorm room, the way her touch had felt like home. Did you know right away that you loved her? Diane shook her head. I didn't have the words for it. I'd never thought about women that way. But with Claire it wasn't about choosing. It just was. Ellie nodded, her throat tight. She'd spent years denying her own feelings, telling herself Sarah was just a phase. But hearing her mother's story, she felt a crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. What happened? Ellie asked. Why did it end? Diane's face darkened. Your father found out. I don't know how, maybe he saw us together, maybe someone told him. He came home one night drunk, screaming about how I'd ruined our family. You were asleep upstairs, only 14. I tried to calm him, but he hit me. Ellie's breath caught. He what? Diane's voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. It wasn't the first time, but it was the last. I told him to leave and he did. But the town, they'd already started talking. Someone saw Claire and me at the beach, holding hands. The rumors spread like wildfire. People stopped coming to the library. They'd whisper when I walked by. And then the threats started. What kind of threats? Ellie's voice was sharp, her hands trembling. Notes slipped under the door, calls in the middle of the night. Someone spray-painted Dyke on Claire's studio. She was fearless, though. She'd paint over it, laugh it off. But I was scared, Ellie. Not for me, for you. Ellie's eyes burned. So you sent me away. Diane nodded, tears spilling over. Your grandma offered to take you. She said Montana would be a fresh start, away from the hate. I thought I was protecting you. But I was wrong. I should have fought harder, kept you close. Ellie's mind spun. She remembered the day she'd left, the way Diane had hugged her so tightly she could barely breathe. She thought it was her fault, that she'd done something wrong. Now she saw the truth. Her mother had been drowning in fear and shame. Did Claire stay? Ellie asked. Diane's shoulders slumped. For a while. We tried to make it work, but the town wouldn't let us. The threats got worse. Someone slashed her tires, broke her windows. And then Diane's voice broke. She got sick. Cancer. It came fast, and she was gone within a year. Ellie's heart sank. You lost her. Diane nodded, her face crumpling. And I lost you too. I didn't know how to bring you back, not after everything. I thought you'd hate me. Ellie reached across the table, grabbing her mother's hand. I don't hate you. I need to understand. Diane squeezed her hand, her grip fierce. I'll tell you everything, Ellie. No more secrets. They spent the day talking, piecing together the past. Ellie learned about Claire's art, her dreams of showing in New York, the way she'd loved Diane fiercely until her final breath. But questions lingered. Why had Diane stayed in this town, surrounded by people who'd shunned her? And what was the secret Diane still hadn't revealed? As evening fell, Ellie stepped outside, needing air. She walked to the pier, the ocean stretching out like a canvas of secrets. She thought of Sarah, wondering if she'd ever find the courage to love as fiercely as her mother had. Tomorrow she'd ask Diane the hardest questions. But tonight, she let the waves carry her grief, her hope, and the love she was only beginning to understand. The pier stretched into the Pacific, its weathered boards creaking under Ellie's boots. The ocean roared, a restless mirror to her thoughts. She clutched her phone, Sarah's number glowing on the screen, her thumb hovering over the call button. She hadn't spoken to Sarah in years, not since she'd pushed her away in college, terrified of what loving her meant. Now, hearing Diane's story, Ellie saw herself in her mother's fear, her silence. She slipped the phone back into her pocket, unresolved, and turned back toward Diane's house. Inside, Diane was sorting through a box of old letters, her hands trembling as she pulled out a sketch Claire had drawn. A portrait of Diane laughing, her eyes bright with love. She gave me this the day we admitted how we felt, Diane said, her voice soft. I keep it to remember who I was with her. Ellie sat beside her, the sketch stirring something deep. You loved her so much. Why stay here, Mom? In a town that hated you for it. Diane's gaze drifted to the window, where the town's lights flickered in the distance. I wanted to prove I could. That I wasn't ashamed. But mostly I stayed because this was where Claire and I were us. Leaving felt like letting them win. Ellie nodded, understanding the weight of defiance. She'd spent years running from herself, from Sarah, from the truth of who she was. Did you ever think about telling me? About you and Claire? Diane's eyes met hers, raw with regret. Every day. But I was afraid you'd look at me the way they did. I couldn't bear losing you completely. You didn't lose me, Ellie said, her voice firm. I'm here now. Diane smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. There's more, Ellie. Something I haven't told you. Ellie's stomach tightened. What? Diane hesitated, then pulled a letter from the box, its envelope yellowed with age. This came after Claire died. It's from her sister, Marie. She blamed me for everything. Said I'd ruined Claire's life, that I'd dragged her into something she wasn't ready for. Ellie took the letter, her fingers brushing the faded ink. That's not fair. You loved her. Diane's voice cracked. I know. But Marie said Claire was planning to leave, to go back to Seattle. That she was scared too, scared of the town, of what we'd become. I didn't believe it, but it planted a seed. I started wondering if I'd been selfish, if I'd pushed her too far. Ellie's heart ached. She saw the guilt in her mother's eyes, the kind that had kept her silent for years. You didn't push her, Mom. She stayed because she loved you. Diane shook her head. There's more. Marie said Claire left something for you. A letter, a painting, something she wanted you to have. I never saw it. Marie wouldn't send it, said I didn't deserve to know. Ellie's breath caught. For me? Why? I don't know, Diane admitted. Claire loved you like you were her own. She'd read to you, draw with you. Maybe she wanted you to understand us. Ellie's mind raced. A piece of Claire meant for her was out there somewhere. Where's Marie now? Diane's face fell. I don't know. She cut contact after that letter. I tried finding her, but nothing. Ellie stood, determination flaring. I'll find her. I need to know what Claire wanted me to have. Diane looked at her, pride and fear mingling in her eyes. Be careful, Ellie. Marie, she's angry. She might not want to see you. I don't care, Ellie said. I need answers. That night, Ellie searched online for Marie, Claire's sister. She found an old address in Seattle, a phone number that might still work. Her hand shook as she dialed, but it went to voicemail. She left a message, her voice steady. This is Ellie Harper, Diane's daughter. I need to talk about Claire. The next day, Ellie drove to Seattle, the road stretching out like a question mark. Diane had offered to come, but Ellie needed to do this alone. The city loomed, its skyline sharp against the gray sky. She found Marie's address, a small apartment above an art gallery. The irony wasn't lost on her. Marie answered the door, a woman in her late 50s with Claire's dark curls and a guarded expression. You're Diane's kid, she said, her voice cold. What do you want? I want what Claire left for me, Ellie said, holding her gaze. Marie's eyes narrowed. You think you can just show up after all these years? I didn't know, Ellie said, her voice breaking. I didn't know about Claire, about my mom, about any of it. Please. I need to understand. Marie studied her, then stepped aside. Come in. But don't expect me to make this easy. Inside, the apartment was filled with paintings. Claire's paintings, their colors vibrant against the drab walls. Ellie's heart pounded as Marie handed her a sealed envelope, Claire's handwriting scrawled across it. For Ellie. This is it, Marie said. She wrote it before she died. I didn't give it to your mom because I couldn't. Ellie's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope, pulling out a letter and a small sketch of a girl, her at 14 smiling. The letter was short, but every word burned. Dear Ellie, I love your mom and I love you. I'm sorry for the pain we've caused. Be brave, be you. Don't let the world tell you who to love. Claire. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Marie, who was watching her, her expression softening. She was right, Ellie said. I need to be brave. Marie nodded. She'd be proud of you. Ellie left with the letter and sketch, her heart full and heavy. She wasn't done yet. There was still Sarah, still her own truth to face. But Claire's words gave her strength, a spark to carry forward. Ellie drove back to Oregon, Claire's letter tucked into her jacket pocket, the sketch on the passenger seat. The road blurred through her tears, not from sadness but from a clarity she'd never felt before. Claire's words, be brave, be you, echoed a call to action she couldn't ignore. Back at Diane's house, Ellie found her mother in the backyard, tending a small garden Claire had planted years ago. The roses were still blooming, defiant against the autumn chill. Ellie handed Diane the letter and sketch, watching her mother's face crumple as she read. She loved you so much, Diane whispered, tracing the sketch of Ellie's young face. I should have told you about her sooner. You're telling me now, Ellie said, sitting beside her. That's what matters. Diane looked at her, eyes searching. What are you going to do with this, Ellie? With what you've learned? Ellie took a deep breath. I need to find Sarah. I loved her, Mom. In college. But I pushed her away because I was scared. Scared of being like you, of what it would mean. Diane's hand found hers, warm and steady. You don't have to be scared. Not anymore. Ellie nodded, but the fear was still there. A shadow she'd carried too long. She spent the evening searching for Sarah online, her heart pounding with every click. She found her on a photography website. Sarah Nguyen, now 31, a freelance photographer in Portland. Her portfolio was full of vibrant cityscapes, her face older but still radiant, her dark eyes as kind as Ellie remembered. Ellie sent a message through the website's contact form, her fingers trembling. Hi Sarah. It's Ellie Harper. I'd love to reconnect. I owe you an apology. She hit send before she could overthink it, then waited, her stomach in knots. The next day Sarah replied, Ellie? Wow. I'm in Portland. Coffee tomorrow? The simplicity of it broke something open in Ellie. She drove to Portland, the city buzzing with life, so different from the small town that had shaped her mother's pain. They met at a cozy cafe, fairy lights strung across the ceiling. Sarah was already there, her black hair pulled into a loose braid, a camera bag slung over her shoulder. When she saw Ellie, her face lit up, but her eyes held a cautious hope. Ellie Harper, Sarah said, standing. It's been a while. Ellie's throat tightened. Too long. I'm sorry, Sarah, for how I left things. Sarah's smile faltered, but she gestured to the seat across from her. Sit. Let's talk. They ordered coffee, the air between them heavy with unspoken history. Ellie told her everything, about Diane, Claire, the letter, the years of running from herself. Sarah listened, her eyes softening with every word. I loved you, Ellie said finally, her voice raw. I was too scared to admit it, but I loved you. Sarah reached across the table, her hand resting lightly on Ellie's. I loved you too. But you broke my heart, Ellie. When you walked away, I didn't know why. I know, Ellie said, tears spilling over. I was afraid of what it meant, of what people would think. But I'm not that person anymore. Sarah's thumb brushed over Ellie's knuckles, a small gesture that felt like forgiveness. What changed? My mom, Ellie said. Her story. Claire's letter. They showed me what it costs to hide who you are. Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening. I'm glad you're here. But where do we go from here? Ellie didn't have an answer, not yet. But sitting across from Sarah, feeling the warmth of her hand, she knew she wanted to try. They talked for hours, the cafe emptying around them, laughter mixing with tears as they rebuilt a bridge they'd thought was burned. When they parted, Sarah hugged her, lingering a moment longer than necessary. Call me, she said. Don't disappear again. I won't, Ellie promised, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Back in her mother's town, Ellie told Diane about Sarah, about the hope she felt. Diane listened, a smile spreading across her face. You're braver than I was, she said. Don't let that go. But there was still one piece missing. Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that Diane was holding something back, a final secret tied to Claire's death. She confronted her mother that night, the air thick with tension. Mom, what aren't you telling me? Ellie asked, her voice steady. There's something about Claire, isn't there? Diane's face paled. She sat heavily, pulling out a small journal from the box of Claire's things. This was hers, she said. I found it after she died. It's about us, about you. But there's something in it I never told you. Ellie took the journal, her hands trembling. What is it? Diane's voice was barely a whisper. Claire didn't just get sick. She was hurt. Someone in town, they attacked her. The cancer came after, but the attack, it broke her. Ellie's blood ran cold. Who did it? Diane shook her head. I don't know. The police never found out. But it's why I stayed, Ellie. I needed to know. I needed to make sure it wouldn't happen again. Ellie's vision blurred with tears. The town, the hate, it had taken Claire, had taken her mother's spirit. She clutched the journal, determined to find the truth, not just for Claire, but for Diane and for herself. Ellie sat on the floor of Diane's living room, Claire's journal open in her lap. The pages were filled with sketches and words, Claire's handwriting a mix of sharp angles and soft curves. Entries spoke of love, fierce, unapologetic love for Diane, and fear, the kind that crept in with every threatening note, every whispered slur. But one entry, dated a month before Claire's death, stopped Ellie cold. They're watching us. I saw him again today outside the studio. He didn't say anything, just stared. I'm scared, not for me but for Diane and Ellie. I can't let them hurt her. Ellie's heart pounded. Mom, she called, her voice shaking. Who was Claire afraid of? Diane stood in the doorway, her face ashen. I don't know. She never told me. She'd come home shaken, but she'd brush it off, say it was nothing. I should have pushed harder. Ellie closed the journal, her mind racing. We need to find out. Whoever it was, they're part of this town. They're still here. Diane's eyes widened. Ellie, no. It's too dangerous. I lost Claire. I can't lose you. You won't, Ellie said, standing. But I can't let this go. Claire deserves justice. You deserve peace. The next day, Ellie went to the local library, where Diane had worked all those years ago. The librarian, an older woman named Ruth, remembered Diane and Claire. Her face softened when Ellie mentioned Claire's name, but her eyes darted nervously. People didn't take kindly to them, Ruth said, her voice low. There was a group, men mostly, who'd hang out at the bar on Main Street. They'd talk loud, make threats. One of them, Tom Carver, was the worst. He'd lost his job at the mill, blamed everyone but himself. He had it out for Claire especially. Ellie's pulse quickened. Tom Carver. Is he still around? Ruth nodded. Lives out by the old quarry. But be careful, Ellie. He's not the man he was, but he's still trouble. Ellie thanked her and left, her mind set. She drove to the quarry, a desolate stretch of gravel and rusted machinery. Tom's house was a run-down trailer, its windows dark. She knocked, her heart in her throat. Tom answered, a grizzled man in his 60s, his eyes bloodshot. Who are you? He growled. Ellie Harper, she said, standing tall. Diane's daughter. I'm here about Claire. His face hardened, but he didn't slam the door. That was a long time ago. I don't know nothing. You knew enough to scare her, Ellie said, her voice steady. She wrote about you. About someone watching her. Tom's jaw tightened, but he stepped outside, closing the door behind him. I didn't touch her. Yeah, I said things, did things I ain't proud of. But I didn't hurt her. Then who did? Ellie pressed. Tom looked away, his hands shaking. It wasn't just me. The whole town was against them. But there was one guy, Mike Dillon. He was young, angry, always talking about fixing things. He'd follow Claire, make her life hell. After she died, he left town. Nobody's seen him since. Ellie's stomach churned. Where would he go? Tom shrugged. Don't know. Don't care. I got my own ghosts. Ellie left, her mind buzzing. Mike Dillon. A name, a lead. She called Sarah, needing her voice, her steadiness. Sarah answered on the first ring, her concern immediate. You're chasing ghosts, Ellie, Sarah said. Be careful. I have to do this, Ellie said. For Claire. For Mom. I know, Sarah said softly. But don't do it alone. I'm coming to you. Sarah arrived that evening, her presence a balm to Ellie's frayed nerves. They sat with Diane, poring over Claire's journal, piecing together fragments of the past. Sarah's hand rested on Ellie's, a quiet promise of support. Together they searched for Mike Dillon online, finding an old police report from the year Claire died. It mentioned an assault, no suspect named, but the description matched what Tom had said. Young, angry, a drifter. Ellie's resolve hardened. She'd find him, or at least find the truth. The next day, Ellie and Sarah went to the police station, asking for records. The officer, a kind man named Officer Grant, pulled the file. It's cold, he said. No evidence, no witnesses. But I remember Claire. She was good people. If you find something, let me know. Ellie nodded, clutching the file. Back at Diane's, they read through it, finding a note about a witness who'd seen a man near Claire's studio the night of the attack. No name but a description, tall, sandy hair, a scar on his cheek. That's him, Diane said, her voice trembling. Mike Dillon. I saw him once outside the diner. He had that scar. Ellie's heart raced. They had a face, a name. But Mike was gone, a ghost like Claire. Still, Ellie felt closer to the truth, closer to giving her mother closure. And with Sarah by her side, she felt braver, ready to face whatever came next. Ellie and Sarah sat on Diane's porch, the ocean's rhythm a steady backdrop to their planning. The police file lay open between them, Mike Dillon's description circled in red. Ellie's fingers traced the words, her mind fixed on finding him. Sarah's hand on her shoulder grounded her, a reminder that she wasn't alone. We need to be smart about this, Sarah said, her voice calm but firm. If Mike's still out there, he's not going to welcome questions. Ellie nodded, her jaw tight. I know, but I can't stop now. Claire deserved better. Mom deserved better. Diane joined them, her eyes red from crying but steady with resolve. If you're going after him, I'm coming with you. I need to face this too. Ellie hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Together. They spent the day digging deeper, using Sarah's research skills to track Mike Dillon. An old social media profile led them to a bar in Idaho, where a man matching his description worked. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. They packed a bag, piling into Ellie's car for the 12-hour drive. The road trip was quiet at first, the weight of their mission heavy. But Sarah's presence lightened the air, her stories of photography gigs and city life pulling Ellie and Diane into laughter. Diane shared memories of Claire, small moments that painted her as more than a tragedy. A woman who'd danced in the rain, who'd painted Ellie's nails bright blue when she was 10. "You're like her, you know," Diane said to Ellie, her voice soft. "Fearless when you let yourself be." Ellie glanced at Sarah, who smiled, her eyes warm. "I'm trying," Ellie said. "For you. For Claire." They reached the bar in Idaho late at night, a dive with flickering neon and a gravel lot. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and regret. Ellie scanned the room, her heart pounding. A man behind the bar caught her eye, tall sandy hair, a scar slicing across his cheek. "That's him," Diane whispered, her voice trembling. Ellie approached, Sarah and Diane flanking her. "Mike Dillon?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her gut. The man looked up, his eyes narrowing. "Who's asking?" "Ellie Harper," she said. "Diane's daughter. We need to talk about Claire." Mike's face hardened, but he didn't run. He gestured to a corner table, away from the bar's noise. "I didn't think anyone would come looking after all this time," he said, his voice low. "What did you do to her?" Ellie demanded, her hands clenched. Mike leaned back, his eyes distant. "I was young, stupid. Angry at the world. Your mom and Claire, they were an easy target. I followed her, scared her. That night at her studio, I pushed her. She fell, hit her head. I didn't mean for it to go that far." Diane's breath hitched, her hand gripping Ellie's. "You killed her," she whispered. Mike shook his head. "It wasn't like that. She was alive when I left. I heard later she got sick, died. I didn't know." "You didn't know?" Ellie's voice rose, drawing eyes from the bar. "You terrorized her. You and this town broke her." Mike's shoulders slumped, his face etched with guilt. "I'm sorry. I've carried it every day. I left town, tried to forget. But I can't." Sarah's hand found Ellie's, calming her. "You need to make this right," Sarah said to Mike. "Go to the police. Tell them what you did." Mike nodded slowly. "I will. I owe her that." They left the bar, the night air cold against their skin. Diane was silent, tears streaming down her face. Ellie pulled her into a hug, feeling her mother's pain, her own anger melting into resolve. Back in Oregon, they went to Officer Grant with Mike's confession. He promised to follow up, to reopen the case. It wasn't justice, not fully, but it was a step. Diane clung to Ellie, whispering, "Thank you for not giving up." That night, Ellie and Sarah sat by the ocean, the waves crashing under a starlit sky. "I'm proud of you," Sarah said, her hand warm in Ellie's. "You gave her closure." Ellie leaned against her, her heart full. "I'm not done yet. I want to be with you, Sarah. For real this time." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining. "I'd like that." They kissed, soft and certain, the ocean bearing witness. Ellie felt Claire's words in her bones. "Be brave, be you." She was ready. Ellie woke to the sound of seagulls, the morning light filtering through Diane's curtains. Sarah slept beside her, her breathing soft, her arm draped across Ellie's waist. For the first time in years, Ellie felt anchored, not adrift. Today was about beginnings, but also about tying up the loose ends of the past. Downstairs, Diane was making breakfast, the smell of pancakes filling the house. She looked lighter, as if Mike's confession had lifted a weight she'd carried for decades. "You're staying for a while, right?" Diane asked, her eyes hopeful. Ellie smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. "Yeah, Mom. I'm not going anywhere." After breakfast, Ellie and Sarah drove to the pier, where Claire's old studio still stood, now a community art space. Diane had suggested they visit, to see the place where Claire had poured her heart. Inside, the walls were lined with local art, but one corner held a small exhibit labeled in memory of Claire. Her paintings hung there, bold, vibrant, alive. Ellie's breath caught as she recognized one. A portrait of her and Diane, painted when Ellie was 14. They were laughing, their faces bright against a backdrop of ocean waves. A plaque read, "Claire's gift to this town. A reminder to love fearlessly." "She'd be so proud of you," Sarah said, her hand slipping into Ellie's. Ellie nodded, tears welling. "I wish I'd known her better." "You know her now," Sarah said. "Through her art, her words. Through your mom." They spent the day at the studio, talking with locals who'd come to appreciate Claire's legacy. Some apologized for the past, their voices heavy with regret. Ellie listened, forgiving not for them, but for herself and Diane. The town was changing slowly, and Claire's memory was part of that. That evening, Ellie and Diane sat down to write a letter to Marie, Claire's sister. They included a photo of the studio exhibit, a thank you for the letter that had set Ellie on this path. "We're healing," Ellie wrote. "And we're remembering Claire the way she'd want to be remembered." Sarah helped them seal the letter, her presence a steady comfort. As they mailed it, Ellie felt a chapter closing but not the story. She and Sarah were starting something new, something real. They decided to stay in Oregon for a while to rebuild with Diane to explore what they could be together. Weeks later, Officer Grant called. Mike Dillon had turned himself in, confessing to Claire's assault. The case was reopened, and while the truth couldn't bring Claire back, it gave Diane closure. She hung one of Claire's paintings in her living room, a bright splash of color that felt like a promise. Ellie and Sarah rented a small apartment in town, close enough to visit Diane daily. They'd walk the beach hand in hand, unafraid of the stares that sometimes followed. Ellie thought of Claire's letter, her words a guiding light. "Don't let the world tell you who to love." One night under a full moon, Ellie and Sarah stood at the pier, the ocean stretching endless before them. "I love you," Ellie said, the words easy now, no longer a secret. Sarah smiled, pulling her close. "I love you too." Diane joined them, her laughter mingling with the waves. They were a family, pieced together from pain and love, stronger for it. Ellie looked at her mother, at Sarah, at the town that had once broken them. It hadn't won. They had. As they walked back to Diane's house, Ellie felt Claire's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a spark, a reminder to live bravely, to love fiercely. The secret that had torn them apart had brought them back together, and in its truth they'd found freedom.